Rommel, you magnificent bastard, I read your book!
The book I chose for this project was Bill O'Reilly's Killing Patton. Bill O'Reilly.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Bill O'Reilly wanted to write this book to tell the story of General George Patton's last year alive, detailing his car crash and paralysis and his eventual death in hospital. In this time, he also describes important moments in the general's career, as well as other historical events that were happening around at this time. This book's mainly targeted towards historians, specifically World War II historians, and history buffs who liked reading war novels and learning about those wars. And this book also delves into conspiracy theories, who believe the Russians poisoned the often outspoken general while he was crippled from his car accident. However, this theory is by many World War II scholars, but O'Reilly believes that the Russians killed Patton. Now, killing Patton's purpose is to educate people about Patton and his influence on the war from a different point of view, in which we, the readers, get into the mind of the various people focused in the book. By doing this, we are able to better understand how impactful Patton's actions and accomplishments were and how they affected other people in the war. Now, the incident you see in the corner is when Patton slapped his soldier. He walked into a military tent where he saw a shell-shocked soldier there among the wounded. Now, Patton didn't believe in shell shock, and he immediately walked up to the soldier, slapped his helmet off, and threw him outside to go back to the front lines. This was a very controversial moment, as many people did not agree with this, and even his own boss, General Eisenhower, it was seen very negatively around the world, and especially in America. O'Reilly writes about this moment in great detail, that he was able to back up with military documents reporting about the incident. Throughout the book, the author retells battles and private interactions in detail, and he's able to back up these claims because his main sources come from eyewitness accounts and military records, letters, and even diary entries. This entry by General Eisenhower mentions Patton in Verdun, which actually happens in the book in the very first chapter, where Patton's army fights in the Battle of Metz. The book follows a linear timeline from October 1944 all the way to December 1945, mainly following the battles Patton fought in between those 14 months, starting with the Battle of Metz, where the American forces failed to capture Fort Dry, which was a devastating loss to Patton at the time, and it was considered his first major defeat in over a year. Then the book moves on to the Battle of the Bulge, which was a last-ditch attempt by the Germans to save themselves from losing World War II. This move caught the Allies by surprise, and the Allies were pushed back for several miles until German advance was stalled when the tanks they had got too far from the main infantry force, and when a key town that was occupied by American soldiers refused to surrender, leading to the Siege of Bastogne. During the siege, Americans had to endure heavy bombardment, dwindling supplies, and the freezing cold as the Germans tried to get them out of this town. However, they managed to hold out long enough for Patton and his army to save them, and thus this began pushing the Germans all the way back to Berlin, leading to the Battle of the Rhine, in which the Allies and Soviets raced to Berlin to be the first one to claim the city. The Germans were pushed all the way back to the city, and it signaled the end of the war in Berlin. Patton wanted to be the first one to reach Berlin, and he was only a couple miles away until General Eisenhower stopped him only a couple miles away from the city, which let the Russians capture the city, which really angered Patton. A few months after Japan surrendered, Patton was driving to go hunting in northern Germany when his car collided with a drunken troop transport truck, paralyzing Patton from the neck down. A few days later, he would die in hospital and be buried, which officially ended the book. Throughout throughout the book also mentions various other events such as Franklin Delano Roosevelt's death and his replacement by Harry Truman, the downfall of Hitler and his eventual suicide, and the Big Three meeting in which Stalin from the USSR, FDR from the Americans, and Winston Churchill from England got together to decide the new world after World War II had ended. This meeting would eventually lead to the Cold War. Before I read this book, I thought I knew a lot about World War II, and I thought I was really smart. I was young, and I thought I'm a genius in about World War II. I wasn't. And this book was a very sobering moment because I didn't know half of the battles this book mentioned, and I didn't even know who Patton was. So reading this was a real sobering moment. But regardless of that, this book is a very interesting read, and it taught me a lot about the war that I didn't know, a lot more smaller details that had bigger effects, like Patton slapping soldiers and all that. And it was a very important book to me, and it taught me a lot more about things I didn't know. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. It's a great book, even for a casual reader, because it's not your typical textbook detailing of the war, and it offers a more different approach to telling a story, as you don't feel like you're reading about the book. You feel like you're seeing the war through the character's eyes. And this book can appeal to all people, regardless of their knowledge about World War II, and it can serve as a bedtime book or something just to read while relaxing, and I highly recommend it.